I loved being in the Army. I loved everything about being in the Army because there's something about wearing that uniform that is just so absolutely amazing. And I learned to live, just as many of you who raised your hand, is that you had these two separate lives. You had your regular life in your military unit, and you loved your coworkers, and you loved your mission, and you loved being that representative of what American values stood for. And then you had this whole separate set of off-the-grid friends. And it was only with the off-the-grid friends that you ever truly felt like you were yourself. But you knew the rules. And if you happened to see one of those off-the-grid friends in the motor pool or pass them in the commissary, you had to walk past each other like you didn't even know each other. Because you couldn't risk the question, well, how do you know Jones? Jones is in Bravo Company, you're in Alpha Company, how do you know Jones? And you never wanted to open yourself up for those types of questions. So I went through and I just absolutely loved being in the military. In 1993, we had the debate that became Don't Ask, Don't Tell. We moved from that policy that said your mere existence is not good enough to Don't Ask, Don't Tell that says you're allowed to exist, but don't tell us who you are. And in 1993, as we moved through that, at that time I had been in the military just about 7 or 8 years, it felt like victory. It felt like victory because at least we could be who we were, but nobody could know. And when I look back on that now, I realize that I was celebrating still my own self-marginalization to say that that was a better place to be. But it felt better because somebody acknowledged that I did exist as I served the uniform. I continued my service and everything was going great. I'm going to say everything went good until about 2004. And then in 2004, something happened to me that just kind of threw off everything that I had thought about my continuing to serve, being able to have these two separate worlds, my compartmentalized life. And in 2004, I met Tracy, who would become my wife. And I have to tell you, after 2004, it became hard to live off the grid. It became hard to have two separate lives because the very best thing in the world I wanted to tell everyone about. I wanted people to know about Tracy. I was happy when I was around Tracy, and yet I had to hide her. And now, just like in the motor pool before, if somebody happened to see us there, we were living in the Pentagon area, if somebody happened to see us in Harris Teeter in the supermarket, and she heard someone say, "Hey ma'am," she would peel away and just pretend that she wasn't there with me. And later then we would just link back up, and those were the rules, and she understood those. And so as the conversation changed and all of you did all of this great work that went in between to move equality to where it was moving towards, and we moved from 2004 to 2008, 2009, that time, there's this conversation that's re-energized about Don't Ask, Don't Tell, and about whether or not people should be allowed to serve. And I have to tell you that it became harder and harder to serve. And I got to a point where I couldn't do it anymore because I couldn't continue to not tell people about Tracy. In that time though, Chairman Mullen, who was our chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff, he made that amazing statement when the Senate asked him to come and testify. And he made, and I paraphrase, about how Don't Ask, Don't Tell essentially asks our service members to violate their own integrity in order to serve. When I heard those words, I cried. For the first time in my life, someone serving in uniform said I was good enough, exactly the way I was. That I was good enough to wear the same uniform that he as the chairman was wearing and to represent our service. And so we decided that, well, maybe if this is going to change, if somebody that senior is going to give us hope, maybe I should stay in. And I was in Afghanistan when Don't Ask, Don't Tell was finally repealed. And it was in September 20th, 2011. Nothing had changed for the military. Everything had changed for us. And now we could be who we were. Tracy and I were able to get married then when I redeployed. And we got married in 2012, March of 2012. And it wasn't long after that that I was notified that I was selected for promotion to general officer. No general officer or flag officer in any of the services had come out. And so when my name came out on that promotion list, people asked, well, what are you going to do? Are you going to come out? Are you going to just continue? So we had to make a choice. I have to tell you that that was the hardest choice I had ever made. I had 25 years of homophobia built up in me. I had 25 years of messaging that I wasn't good enough to be who I was. I only had one person who had ever said out loud in uniform that I was okay. But at the end of the day, I knew that as a general officer, it was what I needed to do. If I give a signal that I'm ashamed of my family, what am I telling others who are now entering the military, never having to live under this policy, and those that are currently serving? But it was hard. And as I look back on this and I think about some of my parallels to Colonel Pat's experience and to what Barbara, I understand, in a sense, the choice that she had to go through. And I want that story to be told. And I understand the moral hurt that she has experienced over these years and the hurt that she has held in her heart about what she had to do to follow she had to follow them as a military officer. But she has moral pain from that experience of what she went through, not only from having to hide her life, but this very unique experience of the role that she played in the discharge of one of the most visible of our heroes who fought for the repeal of Don't Ask, Don't Tell, but in that time, one of our most visible people. And I understand that moral harm. And I need for people to know. I see this as a way of reaching a much broader audience, for people to understand about what some people have to go through, about these choices in their life they have to make. And when they see people who can move through that and successfully live their life, they realize that they don't have to be putting themselves in this place of moral harm with some of these choices. So I am thrilled to be involved in a small way, to talk about my story, to relay that their story is in many ways all of our stories. And it is a story that needs to be told to a broader audience.